first? Throw it in the chat box. Somebody tell me. The first one to put it in, that's the one we're going to hit first.
Let's go buy side. Let's go buy side.
All right, buy side. So, you know, anybody out there right now with buyers is experiencing multiple offer situations. And buyer representation right now has become really challenging for that reason alone. It's a mixture of a couple of things. It's one, keeping your clients positive through that process, especially if they lose a couple of bidding wars. And number two, it's allowing them to have the right tools, the right mindset, and the right understanding of the market so that they can actually win a bidding war or a multiple bid situation. If we do not educate our buyers properly going into a bidding war, we run the risk of losing that buyer. In fact, it ends up being a pretty high percentage chance that if your buyer loses several bidding wars and we're not able to keep them motivated, that they will end up working with another agent because they may very well think that the other agent is going to be aggressive enough, do what they have to do to get them the house that they're searching for. So I say that to express how important it is that we really focus on this on the buy side, because loyalty will go out the window if someone thinks that they need this new person in order for them and their family to now finally have a house. So I guess we'll open it up on the buy side, and let's say that there's several techniques or things that we can do to spice up our offer. So I'd like to spend the first 15 minutes or so talking about those particular techniques that we can add to our offer to make it more appealing, thus increasing the chances of us winning the buyer bidding war, right? Price aside. And then the second 15 minutes of the buy side, I want to talk about pricing and how you guys are convincing or allowing your sellers to come up with a number that's strong enough to win the bidding war. So first part's going to be terms here, first 15 minutes. Second 15 minutes is going to be price on the buy side. Does that sound like fun?
Yeah.
All right. So guys, let's talk through some different terms here that you guys are throwing in to help position or better position your buyers in the current market on the bidding war end. Nobody's doing anything? That's scary.
And everyone's muted right now because there was some background at first. So if you want to unmute yourself, if you do have something you want to contribute, just unmute yourself real quick. And I know there's a lot of, hey, Christine.
Hi, how is everyone?
Good.
All is good.
I have had a rough go of it. I've come in second place now the last couple of go rounds, doing everything I know to do. I've even added the video into the whole letter situation. But I'm encouraging them to be as aggressive as they can, writing a letter, a bigger down payment to show that you're committed to the property, 10 days after attorney review, flexible closing dates, everything, we know to do. I haven't really done the appraisal floor, and I kind of jumped on here today because I don't really understand that as well. And I don't feel like I like to do things that I don't understand. So I wanted to kind of, maybe if Bill, I don't know if you planned on touching on that.
Yeah.
But if you weren't, that's okay. We can check up another time. But that's what's happening. I mean, the last one that I had was really, really bittersweet because my buyer really, really wanted the house. We did everything we knew to do. I thought our offer was really strong, and yet we still came.
So let's talk through a couple of those things you said first, and then we can jump into the appraisal floor. You said something off the bat that we found to be pretty powerful lately, guys, and that's not just a letter, because everybody's doing a letter. So if everybody's writing a letter, it's one like really emotionally moving story after another. We've had a few I've had a few sellers literally crying as they're reading the letters. And she's like, oh my God, did you read this letter? And I said, no, I'm sorry. I stopped reading those letters a couple years ago. There's like a million letters that come in. And it's hard for me to base my opinion from a real estate perspective on some of those emotional components. But I find it to be very effective lately, mostly on the seller side as we're receiving them. And it's rare that I get these, and it's videos. It's little videos from families, from clients, from buyers that are offering some information on their family when they put an offer in. So I'm gonna play one for you if I can find it here. I had a client send it over recently. Let me see.
While you're looking for that, Jane wrote in the comment box that the letters are technically against fair housing. They should not be making a decision based on anything but money. Be careful.
And videos are the same. Okay. So I'm gonna Kieran.
Let me just say, I don't want to kill the party. Everybody's doing it, but
Yeah.
be very careful. Kieran just said to me privately, I read his mind. You didn't put that in the group chat.
Oh, I didn't.
Everybody does it, but you have to be very careful what you're saying. It could turn around on you. You could do a family video of the perfect little family, and they're making a decision not on their finances, not on their money, but
With Bill?
rather on how they look.
He's
Right.
Just be careful. Not saying don't do it. Everybody does it. They
Right.
do it. Just be super careful, especially with a seller, why the seller is choosing that person over somebody else.
No, that's a great point, Jane. So guys, I mean, just to kind of go into that a little bit deeper, we are not able to make decisions, or it is considered discrimination if we make decisions based on certain factors, right? So we have race, religion, familial status is one, right? So
Protected classes.
yeah, exactly. I think that keeping the videos, really revolving around how much they love the house, that they're excited to move in, that they'll be easy to work with, things like that, are positives. In my perspective, I've even started doing little videos. I don't work with a ton of buyers, a few personal people that I work with. If I do a video as well, those of you who are new to this business or newer in the last 5 years, 15 years ago when I came in, you had to present offers in person. So I would take, in a multiple bid situation, I would take a folder with me and I would stand in line at the house, and one at a time, the agents would go in and they would sit with the sellers and we would pitch our clients. That was like a real sales, role in this business that really doesn't exist anymore. So I do recommend, until Jane tells us we can't do that either, that we as agents can certainly help solidify our buyers by doing that too. So, to come on and explain, your experience in the industry, and that you understand that you've coached the buyer, very concisely as to the different expectations, that, the buyer is willing to proceed to holding inspections to structural and environmental items only, things like that. And that I, as an agent, pride myself on working well with other agents and understand that every transaction isn't just two people, it's several, and we are here to make this process as smooth as possible and a fair win-win for everybody. That can help separate it too. It's with anything, we always want to try and differentiate what we're doing from the rest of the pack. So if everybody's doing letters, maybe we try to pivot that a little bit. I'm going to show you guys a little example here of a video that some clients did recently that came across. And if, hold on one second, I'm gonna try to see if I can get it full screen. And I don't know if this breaks any rules, so we'll talk about that one after, but it was pretty powerful for the seller.
Hi, we're the Amato family. I'm Kristen and I'm an elementary school teacher.
I'm Herman, I'm a police officer.
And this is Adriana. And we have another little one coming on the way in March. And we just wanted to say that you have a beautiful home that we loved instantly when we saw it. We lived in the Glens for about 7 years now and know that we want to stay in Pequannock to raise our family in such a great community. We really hope that we're lucky enough to raise our family in your home and create endless memories there. Thank you for considering our offer.
So short, simple. You know, I don't think they got too much into it, but they just wanted to put a little, you know, person with the offer too. The seller's name happened to be Adriana, which is the same name as their daughter. So we we tried to get the kid on that one too. So again, I'm gonna go to Kieran. If you could just reach out to the board and see what that what it is about a video, and if that's allowable to pass along, I'd like to know that. But I have found that to be a pretty powerful tool to separate. Christine also said limiting inspections, I think she had mentioned. So guys, there's people right now waiving inspections outright. Keep that in mind. So if your buyer's coming in and, you know, being hesitant to express some flexibility on inspections, and there's 8 offers and 2 other offers are expressing flexibility on inspections, that's going to be tough. We talk about flexibility in closing. Another really powerful tool, guys, I've seen this one. This is like a knockout blow, is a lease back. So what's happening is a lot of sellers it's easy for them to sell the house, but it's challenging for them now to find another one, especially if they have a contingency to close the house that they're in. So we've seen multiple times now where they'll offer a 30 to 45 day closing, and then the seller's able to stay in the property for 1, 2, 3 months after while they work to find their place. Now that works well if your buyer's a first time home buyer and has a place to stay, right? They might be living at home. They might already have a lease or something like that. But that takes a ton of pressure off sellers. And I've watched sellers walk away from thousands in order to go with the one that allowed them that smooth transition and took the pressure off from having to scramble and find something while they had it. But the point that Christine here brought up was about the appraisal floor, which is also another powerful one. Mm-hmm. So if we chip through real quick, we have our inspection limitations. We can do flexibility on closing front-loading deposits, right? Bring your deposits as early as possible. Maybe even when you make the offer, put $50,000 down with your offer. Nobody else is doing that. It's the same thing. And of course, write it to your attorney's account so that money's protected. But when we start to get into the powerful ones, we have the leaseback option, which do not put that in the contract. You have to have a conversation with the mortgage broker potentially offline too, because you got to make sure it's not handled like a true rental, that it's actually what's called a use and occupancy. Because if you're renting the property when you close on it, the bank's going to look at that like an investment property, and we can't be doing that. But the appraisal floor is actually, anybody on here want to take a shot at explaining an appraisal floor before I do? Come on, it'll be fun. All right, I'll do it. So we come at an appraisal. You can come at an appraisal floor from a couple of different directions. For those of you who are newer to the business, one of the concerns that a lot of sellers have, and this is a reality right now, in the last couple of weeks, I've had $110,000 and $100,000 under appraisals, meaning that the appraisal came in $100,000 less than the buyer was actually paying for the house, which creates a real big challenge for the buyer. We had one earlier this year, it was $125,000, which we were able to move along. We've had another one recently, $80,000 under on a $500,000 house. That's a massive percentage of an under appraisal. Your appraiser's job is to look back. They're looking at what closed in the past. Your buyer's job is to purchase in today's market. They might have to pay a certain amount in order to win a bidding war, but there's no way it's going to appraise there because the properties in the past have not closed yet at that number. So what an appraisal floor essentially does is it sets some flexibility in the appraisal. So it allows the seller to have peace of mind that down to a certain number, so that's the floor, the buyer is still willing to purchase the property at the same terms. So let's use clean numbers. Let's say it's a $400,000 purchase. Actually, let's make even cleaner numbers. Let's say it's $1 million purchase, and I'm doing this just so we can work percentages easier. It's $1 million purchase. The buyer's putting 20% down, meaning that that's an $800,000 loan. $200,000 down, $800,000 financed. Jumbo rate, by the way, 2.99 on a jumbo today with John Rondi. He just sent that out. So shameless plug for John. If the appraisal comes in at 1 million, that is fine. If the appraisal comes in at 900, the bank no longer looks at it as 20% down. The bank is now looking at it as a $900,000 purchase with an $800,000 mortgage. So the other 100 grand, they don't care about anymore. You're basically just giving that to the seller out of pocket in their mind, because they're looking at the value, not at 1 million, at 900. They want to protect their asset and they don't want you over mortgaging it. So in that case, you're now borrowing 800,000 on what in their minds is a $900,000 purchase price, because that's where the value sits. So it's much more in alignment with 10% down. So for a buyer to move forward in that world and put 20% down, they have to actually come out of pocket with another $80,000 on top of their 200 to get back into alignment with 20% down, so that they now have 20% equity from the 900 number down. Does everybody follow that far? This will be on Facebook if you want to run it through a couple of times. Trust me, it took about 1 million before I got it. So if it came in over, if it came in at 1.1 million, then the bank would be saying, hey, look, man, you basically got 30% equity. Yeah. That's a nice, chunk. Who knows? I don't know if that could help your rate or not. But what sellers are worried about is a buyer coming in, let's use lower numbers, 400,000. They're 5% down conventional. We really have a hard time going much lower conventional. Some will do a 3, but let's just say 5% is really the bottom conventional for argument's sake. And if that appraisal comes in lower, the buyer has to come out of pocket for the difference. Now, the purchase price wouldn't change. They would just be putting more money down and their mortgage would go down, right? But with interest rates being so low, it would change their payment by like $15, but they'd be having to put like 20 grand more out of pocket. And that's where we start to run into issues. So when you have multiple offers, very few buyers take the road of offering an appraisal floor. And that actually is incredibly beneficial in that by offering it, it usually makes the seller's side now ask the other offers, especially the higher ones, if they would be willing to do the same thing. And most of the time people say no, which makes the seller say, well, these people might be offering a higher number, but then they're just looking to knock it back down if the appraisal comes in low. It also opens up the appraisal conversation period for a seller. Most agents, I hate to say this, most sellers, agents are not educating them on the appraisal process. The good ones will, but a lot of them just out of sight, out of mind. They're like, oh, here's the bidding war. I got you all these offers. This is great. And then they're like, wait, what? What is this person offering an appraisal floor? What does that even mean? And then by the agent having to explain that to them, they're saying, wait, so you mean someone else has to come in and say that this house is actually worth this in order for me to get that money? And this person is willing to put a $20,000 appraisal floor in and nobody else has? Wow, they must really want it. They're also making inspections for structural and environmental purposes only, and also giving me the ability to close and have another 2 months to find a place. I know the other one is 10 grand more, but I'll take this one all day. Those are the kind of conversations that happen when we can compound the case. We're attorneys, right? We're on trial and we're building a case here for our buyer. We can't just have a magic bullet. We have to compound these things on top of each other. So the way that it works is we pick a number. So if it's a $400,000 purchase, we could say, as long as the home appraises at 380, so that's a $20,000 appraisal floor, my buyers will commit to continuing to move forward under the normal terms. Guys, important, make sure you put this on the end of it. If it appraises under that, that doesn't mean that we're walking away, right? Or that we're going to renegotiate. We just want to have the right to look at things at that moment before making a choice. But we're clear in committing to an appraisal floor of 20,000, of 50,000, of 70,000. I've had a couple people come in recently with a mortgage and just waive their appraisal altogether, but they can't buy the house cash. So it makes no sense. Make sure that you guys are logical with your appraisal floor and how this is going to work. Now, Let's go to the buy side. You're representing a buyer and you're offering an appraisal floor. You can't just do that without making sure that the mortgage broker is in agreement that they can do that, right? Because that is going to cause them to have to potentially take money out of pocket. And I say potentially because it doesn't always. If they're in a 10% down conventional loan and the property underappraises by 5%, they can still move forward with a 5% down conventional loan. Their rate might change a little bit. Their PMI might go up a little bit, but they might still be able to put the same amount down they were before in the event of that underappraisal. So these are the important conversations you need to have with the mortgage broker before offering that and say, okay, at what number can we still continue to move forward? If somebody's putting 20% down, it could underappraise by 10%. $400,000 house could underappraise by 40 grand, and they could still get the same loans, same everything. They would just pay mortgage insurance in most cases. The banks also necessitate now in many situations that you have a certain amount of cash on hand to cover reserves, right? So that you have 3 months reserves on investment properties, like all of these things. So by just offering an appraisal floor without understanding that the buyer is going to qualify for it, that buyer might use all of his money for the appraisal floor. Now he doesn't have the reserves in the bank size and is going to run into trouble. Anytime we've offered an appraisal floor, we ask for a 3-way conversation with the buyer and the mortgage broker, and we talk about the process. And we say very simply, this is a bidding war that's going to be very competitive. We would like to offer something that may allow the seller to choose our offer, perhaps without even going to the highest number. So we'd like to offer a little flexibility on the appraisal, but we don't want to do that without your blessing. So we want to understand, based on this buyer, based on the amount down, and based on their level of comfort, at what number would they be willing to continue to move forward at the same price, even if the house underappraised by 5%, by $5,000, by $10,000, by $50,000. The one that I said underappraised by 125 grand earlier this year, we actually had a $50,000 appraisal floor in there. So it was a $1.1 million purchase. We said we would move forward as long as it appraised at $1,050,000, and it came in at $975,000. So that created a challenge, which we got through. But the fact that they put that appraisal floor at the beginning put them in a position to secure that. And it made the seller understand that this buyer is willing to put their money where their mouth is when they're offering this price. And on the flip side, listing agents, when you see these offers flying in now, be very careful, because there are agents, there are buyers out there who are like, let's just throw out a stupid high number. It's never going to appraise for that. And then we'll just knock the number back down to something realistic on the appraisal. So you end up picking a much weaker offer, maybe with a lower down payment, less likely, less pleasant terms for a seller. The seller chooses it based on the purchase price, but they're fully confident the purchase price is going to come crashing back down with the appraisal anyway. Did I explain that in a little clearer way, Christine? It is impossible to explain an appraisal floor like beautifully without coming at it from like 4 different angles there. So anybody have any questions specifically about that tool, that tactic in a bidding war, an appraisal floor?
I have a question about that, Bill. Thank you for explaining that. And I'm sure I'll be listening to this over and over again because, you know, I'm 56 now, so it just takes a little longer.
Chicken.
So I feel like, based upon what you explained and just what's going out there in the market, I feel like the appraisal floor is more apropos for a $1 million listing than it would be for a $400,000 listing. Because I do feel like these appraisals are even coming in higher than some of the offer prices. Am I right or wrong about that?
No, so just recently, we really started to see the appraisals become an issue in the lower price ranges. And I think just from a positioning standpoint, if there's 10 offers on there on a property and you're within 10,000 of the top offer and you're offering an appraisal floor and the other side's not, you got a really good chance of winning that bidding war by including it. So I actually think it's incredibly powerful, even if it's not going to come into play, but in the lower price ranges, it's even it's even more important because a lot of times the buyer doesn't have a ton of cash, and the other buyers that they're competing with may not have the financial wherewithal to overcome an appraisal issue like you would in the higher price points. So I'm actually seeing it be more effective theoretically, maybe not fundamentally, in the lower price ranges, because the sellers, just by hearing that, automatically makes this one offer stand way out from all the other ones. And it's a lot of times the sellers don't even fully understand it. So like I said, they're asking their agent, well, what exactly does that mean? And then their agent's explaining to them, even if they're offering you 450 on a 400 list, it's got to appraise at that. So these people are saying, as long as it appraises for 400, they're going to move forward with the purchase anyway. They're like, oh my God, that's great. Well, what about the guy who offered me 460? Did they say that? Can you ask their agents? They ask their agent goes, yeah, no, they're really not comfortable doing anything with the appraisal. Okay, well then my 450 looks like a much, much safer bet at that point. Sometimes, guys, how do I say this? The level of financial understanding in some of the lower price ranges makes this a little more challenging to explain through to make someone comfortable with it. And it's not bad. It's just a lot of times when you get into the higher price ranges, people are playing with these numbers all day, right? Like, and so banking and stuff, it's a concept that's natural almost. In the lower price ranges, it sometimes takes it's a very foreign concept. So it takes a little while to talk through the different, the different examples. But look, with today's interest rates right now, somebody could offer 450 with 10% down, conventional 450. If they put an appraisal floor at 425 in there, meaning a $25,000 flexibility in the appraisal, and that thing comes in at 425, maybe their payment, and don't hold me to this, guys, because I'm not a mortgage person, but maybe their mortgage insurance goes up a tiny bit, but don't forget their loan value now comes down a little bit more too. They won't have to put $1 more down, and their payments might go up a couple dollars a month. Like, to me, that's a much cheaper tool to win a bidding war than to say, oh, I'll go up another 15 grand, right? Because people always say, what is 15,000? It's $10 a month, right? That drives me nuts, by the way, when I hear that, because it's not just $10 a month. It's $10 a month and then 15,000 more that you owe the day that you're going to sell this thing. So one day that is going to be real money out of your pocket in addition to the additional money all the time, because your loan amount is now significantly more. So unless somebody planned on never selling it, the decision to go up 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 will literally be 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 less in their pocket at some point down the road. So that is real money. And that's something that I say, the appraisal floor, depending on if you're 3.5% down FHA, you cannot put an appraisal floor in unless you have a bunch of cash in the bank, which most people then wouldn't be going 3.5% down FHA, because there's no flexibility in there. But the minute you get to conventional, 10%, even 20%, the minute somebody's got an extra 10, 15, 20 grand sitting in the bank that they're not using for reserves or closing costs, you can use that as a tool to get a good price on a house, in my opinion, and it's much cheaper longer term than offering a higher number. Any other questions on appraisal floor? Because I did want to touch upon preparing a buyer for price also, before we move on here.
Hey, Bill, I have a question, comment.
Sure.
FHA is a whole different ballgame, though, no?
Yeah. I mean, I said if somebody's FHA 10 or 15% down, which sometimes they are, sometimes that's the best because they have the appraisal floor automatically with that FHA. Sometimes people have to get an FHA loan because of credit score or something like that. So it's not really debt to income ratios that are driving it. But if somebody's FHA 3.5% down, which is your minimum, then there is no ability to do an appraisal floor. You can't put down any less. That would just put them in it'd be impossible. So you need flexibility in down payment. So unless somebody's FHA 3.5% down and has 1,000 sitting in the bank on the side, it's definitely not. It's not something that's likely to work in their favor. But like VAs are 0% down. But a lot of people applying for VA have money, right, on the sidelines. They're just taking advantage of 0% down. I would too. So I've seen VAs put appraisal floors in and just say, well, if I had to, I'd put 20 grand down. So I'll give it 20, because a VA is a very hard loan to win a bidding war with right now, because the seller's looking at it and they're like, no money down. I'm not even going to get $1 down to the day of closing. Next. With the VA loan, you could offer an appraisal floor. You could even offer money for a down payment that comes back to you at the closing, just so they know you're serious and you're putting money in there, that you're just using that loan. But if you put if it's a 0% down VA loan and your client's got an extra 20 grand sitting in an account, you could put a $20,000 floor on. And if it underappraises by 20 grand, then they just put that 20 grand cash. And now their loan amount's based on the 0% at the purchase price, which would be the, not the purchase price, that would be the appraisal price. So sometimes the lower down payments can allow you some flexibility depending on the loan, but the buyer in that case would have to have money on the sidelines. And a lot of times FHA doesn't. Would you agree with that, Pat?
Yes, but FHA loans, you have to sign that amendatory clause that it has to appraise.
Right. For the purchase price, right? But and you'd have to double check with the mortgage broker on this, but I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe if somebody has, if I'm going FHA, 3.5% down, and it underappraises by 10 grand, I can come out of pocket 10 grand as long as I still have my 3.5% to put down, and that'll continue to move forward. I believe. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right. It has to come out of pocket.
Yeah, because you still need to maintain that down payment there. So what are you guys doing how are you preparing your buyers to go in at the right price? We're running a little over on the buy side, so we'll spend about 7 minutes on this. How are you guys preparing your buyers to come in at the right price based on what's happening right now? Because we all know that the buyers' moms and dads are telling them to go in at like 5% under asking, because that's the standard, right? So sometimes I worry I talk too much on these, because in the mastermind, I don't get much mastering, right, with everybody. So let's, I would like to hear, from some people out there. There's a bunch of agents on here who do business. What are you guys doing to
represent buyers?
Yeah, to help get your buyers to come in at numbers that are competitive? How are you guys going about that?
So what I've been telling people, what it actually is. It's bidding war time and everything like that. You kind of have to come in close to asking or above. And actually, I found a couple of people, their parents who are always involved, is actually telling them, yeah, it's seller's market and it's bidding war time. So they're kind of on the same page, most people, but some people aren't always on the same page, but you kind of get them on the same page. And I think from your last class, we have like the list of things that we can do to get an offer and all that stuff. So we run down through that. So we always have a plan through the process.
Cool. So Kevin, if I'm hearing you right, and thank you so much, man. If I'm hearing you right, like setting the expectations of what to expect in the market is really important, right? Before you go out, before they want to put a bid in?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Because if they see the house and they love it, and then you try telling them they have to, in their mind, overpay by a ton, that might be a hard sale in the moment. Anybody else? Any other?
Back to the buyer's consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the key right there. Just setting it up from the beginning, from that first appointment, so that they understand that just because it's listed for this or listed for that, there's still low inventory, there's still a lot of buyers, and there's still very low interest rates that are causing people to bid, and they have to go in accordingly.
Right. Awesome, Xavier. Yeah, totally. I'll say that From my perspective, I've been coaching the team, and I know a couple of times recently with the market center, I've been saying the same thing. And I really feel in my gut that we should never be giving our clients the price to go in.
Right.
No matter how hard our buyers push us. So no, Bill, really, if it were you though, where would you go in though? Oh,
Yeah.
me, I would go in at 200 grand under asking because I don't need the house right now, right? Your house. So this is all based on our specific needs and our, what you have to do as a buyer is understand how much you want this house and how much you're willing to lose this house. And then only you can come up with that number. Now, we as agents should always be supplying information, right? So we should be sending over, send over comps. That's part of our job. So, hey, here's the last 10 to close in the neighborhood. However, you got to understand that the market's going up. So we're looking in a rear view mirror with comps. I always tell the buyers and I tell the team, you put your buyers, and this works like a dream, into one of 3 categories and always sleep on it before making an offer. I say this to anybody all the time. Before you make any big decision, always sleep on it, because when you wake up the next day, that's how you're really going to feel about it. How many times have you committed to something, you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? We leave the house, they love it. We give them the opportunity to put themselves tonight. Here's all you got to do. Talk through it, have a couple glasses of wine. That's Pat's style. And put yourself into one of 3 categories. Either 1, I don't care if I don't get this house or not. That's where you see a lot of investors, right? At a certain price, it makes sense to them. If they lose it, they could care less. They're like, okay, no skin off my back. I'll go find another one. Number 2, if I lose it, I'm going to be upset, but I'll get over it, right? It's going to keep me up maybe a little bit, but I'm going to get past this. Or number 3, I love this house so much, I really don't want to lose it. I've had situations where people in the moment will put themselves in the number 2, and after sleeping on it, literally say, Bill, we thought we were in number 2, now we're in bucket number 3. It's close to the train station. It's got all these things, and those little things that were bothering us wouldn't. So we really don't want to lose this property. What do we have to do to get it? And this is where it's a coaching game with us and them on the price. So you say, at what number? So let's just play this out. If Pat, are you able to talk?
Yes.
Okay. So if you could be my buyer real quick, okay? So now you've told me that you really want this house. It's listed at $400,000. You say, Bill, we really talked about it all night. We absolutely love it. We want to move forward. Bill, what should we offer? And my response is, so let me ask you a couple questions first. If the property if we knew that we had to bid $400,000, the list price, to get it, would you do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Yes.
If we had to bid $650 to get the house, would you do it?
No way.
No way. So here's what I know. As much as you say you really want this house and love this house, there's a number where you're no longer comfortable doing it. And that's what we need to find right now. The number where you'll wake up the next day and say, you know what, we gave it our best shot, but I made the smart move by not going that extra mile. So let's just say this, Pat, it's listed at 410. I'm sorry, at 400. If I told you you had to pay 410 for it, would you?
I would, yes.
Okay.
I'd pay 420 for it.
Okay, if you would pay 420 for it and you woke up the next day and found out that someone paid 422 and won it over your 420, would you be upset?
Yeah, I'd still be upset. I guess I'd pay 422. I paid 425. No, I'm pushing myself up, right?
Guys, this is exactly how it should go. But this is what ends up happening, and it usually happens too late. You usually get the phone call that says your buyer didn't get it. Then you tell your buyer, and your buyer's like, "Wait, I want to go up. How much should it go for? I'll give him another 5 on top." Now the whole thing is crooked and backwards. So we have to have that conversation, almost like they're losing it before they've actually lost it, and then we find it. But it's important to make them understand what it feels like in their gut to say 650. Hell no, I'm not buying it at 650. So they know what it's like to say no. Okay, that feeling right there is the feeling we need to find. Let's climb the ladder. 425, if someone offered 430, what would you say? Oh, well, now we're really starting to get out of my comfort zone at 430. Okay, awesome. So now let's hone in. Let's do this. And now let's throw in as much of the extras, the list of 10 things that we can also use in addition to price to make our offer the strongest. We've now navigated somebody who probably left to their own devices would have came in at 410. They're now coming in at 425, and maybe they will offer an appraisal floor of 10,000. Maybe they will offer flexibility on closing day. Maybe they will front load their deposits. And this offer is starting to look amazing because we're guiding them to make that decision. If you were coaching somebody to do that and they fell in buckets 1 or 2, you're a bad realtor, right? In their eyes, they're like, this person's coaching me to go way over asking. I don't even like this house that much. So that's why it's so important that we first need to make them put themselves in a category. And I feel like those 3 buckets make it super simple to them. So before they make a decision on price, before they make a decision on terms, they come to peace with which one of those buckets they go in. And then that allows us to coach them as to what they got to do to be comfortable themselves and knowing that they gave their best. And this way, even if they lose it, which in today's world they may, you are in the position where guess whose fault it is if they lost it? It's their
Not
fault.
yours.
Exactly. Now, if they said, Pat, you know Wayne like the back of your hand. What should I offer on this house? And you said 420, and then they lost it, and it closed out for 450, which you were probably right at the time. But this market's insane. They're gonna be like, Pat doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Right? She's telling us she told us 420. That thing ended up closing for 450, right? As opposed to them coming in with the number that is best for them. And then we're really looking out for them and their best interests. Because guys, here's what it comes down to at the end of the day. The minute these houses close, that's the new starting point for the whole market. So all the realtors who were playing hero for their clients and were saying, no, you shouldn't pay that, that's overpaying. Well, now a whole cycle of homes, we all saw it, just closed at a new high price. And guess what? That's now the new starting price. So those people that we thought maybe were overpaying 3 months ago would now be lucky to have a close shot at that number that they could have had a house for back then. So we got to make sure that we take ourselves out of that equation, supply them with information, and then allow them to make the decision based on what's best for them and their specific circumstance. That's where we would go on the pricing side. Eric.
Yo.
Welcome, buddy.
Hello.
We're going to pivot hard right now over to list side because that was a fun one, but it took 43 minutes. List side. Eric, why don't you give us just a little insight on how right now in the current market we're in with multiple offers and stuff, you best suggest rolling out a property and how to, not so much rolling it out and creating the multiple offers, but once we have the multiple offers, what do you do with it? How are you coordinating a process to handle them? Are you sending out messages to everybody? What do those messages say? What are you doing to create a safe system that gets your client the most money?
And be careful while you're driving.
So, you're asking more so, how are you handling offers once you know you're getting offers, not necessarily the rollout, the launch. You're not talking about the launch of a property.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So just the multiple bids themselves. So I was on the phone. KW Kevin. Oh, that's Kevin Smith. Okay. So I was on the phone with the different Kevin this weekend, who it's his first listing and he's potentially got a whole bunch of offers coming in. And he was like, oh my God, like what do I do? And this is where, you can make or break something. I went into a listing a week ago where an agent from a competing brokerage shut the whole thing down on day 2. It came on
Yep.
day 1. Day 2, they shut it all down. They said, "Oh, we got a great offer that my sellers love." Like, are you insane? You're gonna that could be 50 grand right there, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the rollout up to that point, we've expressed how right now it's our job as listing agents to drag this thing out, not too long, but at least a week
Right.
from list to, and there's a couple different steps in there and call for highest and best. But how are you managing? How are you handling? How are you setting expectations with other agents?
So typically our properties start showing on Fridays now. We used to do Thursdays for a broker's open, but we haven't done many broker's opens in recent months. So we start them showing on Fridays. Again, not that we're focusing too much on the rollout or the launch of it, but I know, Bill, you guys do like a Tuesday launch to Saturdays, or is it Sunday?
Saturday, usually Saturday. We used to do Sundays a lot with the opens, but we've done less of that now.
Right. So we do something very similar. We do a little bit longer of a delayed showing. We go Friday to Friday, or Friday to Saturday, or Thursday to Friday. So, that week is a really key a timeline, because what it does is it gives you an indication, right? If going into your first day of showings the night before, you already have a dozen or 2 dozen showings on the books, you're probably going to get multiples. And if you've done everything right on your end, and the seller, has a nice clean place, you've presented it well, you've positioned it well on the market, and you'll know that based on the number of appointments that come in. And a lot of the good agents out there, your co-brokes, they know it too, right? So I'm sure, Bill, you've gotten the call, "Hey, how are you going to be handling offers?" And that's the best call you can get, versus, "Hey, I think my people are interested. Are your people negotiable?" That's like the other end of the spectrum. So typically what we do is, and we find, and it varies, right? I know you probably do something a little bit different, is we let agents know that we're not even looking at offers. We got a lot of times agents will call us Friday afternoon, Friday night, or Saturday morning after they've seen it. "Hey, we're writing up an offer." We ask that, look, they can absolutely submit it if they insist, but we feel that it would be fair to everyone just to hold on to your offer. We're going to present Sunday night. We like to do a 2-step. So if we present Sunday night, whatever's in hand, we'll typically do a highest and best Tuesday. Once in a while, we'll try to stretch it till Wednesday. The challenge is with stretching it till Wednesday, is that if someone either didn't call you, some of the newer or agents who just do their own thing, they just send an offer. Once in a while, I'll get an offer. They didn't even say, "Hey, I just sent an offer." It just comes in my email. Luckily, and you know me, I'm bad with emails, right? Luckily, I have Joe. He reads my emails. He's like, "Oh, did you know you get an offer on this property?" I'm like, "No." "Oh, it came in 2 days ago." I'm like, "Oh my God." But most, if an agent sends in an offer and doesn't play by the whole, the rules of the game, so to speak, now you have an offer, or maybe more than one offer, that came in Friday or Saturday early, and now you're getting back to them Sunday night or maybe Monday morning and say, "Hey, we're holding highest and best Wednesday at 4:00.
Right.
Now you've got a big gap between. Like, that's what I think Bill means by, you want to try to stretch it out, not too long, but there's that middle ground. So we like telling agents that we're going to be looking at all offers, and this is even if we don't have any offers, right? If we have an indication, or even just a slight indication that we might have multiples, we're going to let people know, look, we're going to look at all offers on Sunday night. We're going to present those to the seller, and then we're going to, communicate back with the agents to let you know how we're going to handle it. I give an indication. I try not to be too certain right away. I say, look, depending on what our client agrees to, we'll probably do highest and best Tuesday late afternoon, just to give them. But you'll get an official notice. Now, how do we send notice? We have pretty much a boilerplate email that we've used over the last several years, and we just changed the 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 name of the property and the dates. And that email basically says that thank you for showing XYZ property. We're going to be presenting highest and best on Tuesday at 4:00. Here's what our seller is looking for. And we lay it out in bullet points. Your email should be all caps, highest and best for the subject property. This way we can see it right away. It's just when you're getting 40 emails an hour, you need to be able to pull those out. And then there's a series of things that we ask for. We ask them to write the offer in there, total deposit, give us your attorney's information up front. And the other 2 points are something that we talk to them about when we're presenting this scenario to the buyer's agent. You're going to want to put in there, are your people willing to waive any portion of the appraisal? Knowing that we just had one that was listed for $298. We got 16 offers. We accepted $352,500. So $53,000 over the asking price.
In a 300
that's
price range. That's insane.
Yeah. Yep. And the house needs complete renovations. The kitchen's older than all of us on this call put together. And so the nice thing is, when you have a conversation with an agent, you say, Bill, look, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're probably going to be doing highest and best. We're going to present Sunday night, and we're going to probably do highest and best Tuesday afternoon. A lot of times Bill would say, well, what are your people looking for? Well, these are the things that are going to be on the email, but I'll tell you, and we're going to look for people who are willing to waive a portion or the entire appraisal and a portion of the inspection. Will your buyers, and when I'm communicating with the agent verbally, I say, look, if my people really want a property, we let them know one of the ways to maybe win or stand out from the crowd is to be willing to waive $2,000 of any home inspection items. So if there's a $10,000 home inspection request, you're going to eat the first 2,000. So we kind of say that to the buyer's agent on our property, so they say, oh, that's even, they'll either say, oh, I've never heard of that, or, oh yeah, we do the same thing. So you kind of plant that seed, and then we ask for it in the email.
Good stuff, man. I think to boil it down, so Eric comes at it, and the reason I ask Eric is Eric's predominantly on the list side. He has been. He's handled, especially being in that Essex County pocket, hundreds of these bidding wars. One thing that he said without really saying is he sets the expectations with the agents up front, right? We're not looking at these offers until this date. If somebody gives you an offer on Friday and you have the offer in your hand and now you say, oh, we're not going to be looking at this for 3 days, especially if they give you full price, they're going to go, get out of here. I just give you a full price offer. What are you doing? And then now you're starting a contentious relationship when it should never happen. So very important to set those expectations, like Eric said, along the way, then send out that email with clear instructions to everybody who showed that property. You never know who's going to come in, how many are going to come in. If you or a member of your team have an offer on it, have it go to Kieran. Sorry, Kieran. Have it go right to our managing broker's box. He's really good. He pulls them all together, and then at the deadline on Tuesday at 5:00, he'll send them all to you. And that way we at least have it crystal clear. If any question came up, that it was followed, the rules were followed, and everybody had a fair opportunity. Even if your buyer wins, it was a fair opportunity. They happen to have offered more or have better terms than the others. Francis, hearing what Eric just said there, is there anything, I know you've handled a ton of these as well. I love your jacket, by the way. Is there anything that you want to add to that from a list side, handling that whole multiple offer, multiple bid situation?
Eric's a much nicer realtor than me because I'm not presenting anything Sunday night. Let's start with that. Don't talk to me Sunday night. So I've been doing it a little differently. I'm pretty much setting mine up so that they pretty much do coming soon. So they have like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. People know it's coming next week. Usually starting my showings on Tuesday. And doing the same thing of we're going to be reviewing offers on Monday. The seller wants to, have the house on the market through the weekend. is kind of my thing. And then usually on Monday, setting out that, you know, highest and best for Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how many offers we have. This week was kind of interesting because I actually, for the first time, put a listing on, and it went on Friday, just because I've been having a lot of problems getting the stagers and coordinating everything. So that's the first time I put something. It was a unique house. It was a ranch, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, which one of those $9,000 jacuzzi walk-in tubs for someone elder. I didn't know how this was going to play out, right? Because I was like pushing it already on the price at 410. So interestingly enough, one of the offers that my team received, it was a Zillow call that of course has to have the listing agent. He just did not want to wait. Like 2 days into it, he made an offer immediately, you know, asking price. And he felt that, you know, we were the listing agent, that should get him the house right now, and that I was supposed to pull the house off the market. And we explained very clearly the owner wanted the property to be shown for a couple of days. So he withdrew his offer. And, you know, I was like good with that because I didn't trust him to begin with. But again, so my whole thing is always, until I have a few offers, or at least until I have something that I think we have some backups, I'm not even going to call for a highest and best. So this time I did not call a highest and best because I just didn't, I had offers, but I didn't have any amazing offers, right? So we kind of waited to see, and then kind of just said, you know what, we're going to go with this one. There's no point in trying to squeeze anything else out of them. I think we squeezed what we could. So we're kind of, you know, I take it like depending on the listing. I also feel that right now I'm a little nervous about pricing it based on what I think the house down the block is going to sell for under contract. I am seeing a little bit of a change in my market anyway. And so I'm not trying to come in aggressively overpriced because I'm starting to see price reductions and things sitting on market. Yep. So I'm still telling my sellers, we're still pricing this based on where I think it can get multiple offers right now. Let the buyers decide how much over it can go.
Agreed. Awesome info. Good job, Francis, and kind of just putting on top of what Eric laid us foundation for. Just 2 things I want to pull out of what Francis just said before we sign off here. One thing was, and she kind of indirectly mentioned this, when the buyer wanted her to take the offer, she said to them, the seller wants to keep it on a couple days. So when Eric says, when Francis says, when I say that we come on a weekend and that we don't choose an offer or select an offer or look at offers until Monday, the seller has to be on board with that. That can't be a unilateral decision. Because legally, if we get an offer, we must present it within 24 hours, right? So offer comes in, we have to present it. So it's very important to have your seller on your side, because what would happen if somebody came in with an offer on a Friday and you're like, hey, we're not looking at offers till Monday, and you didn't give it to your seller, and then on Sunday they pulled it back and ran into your seller at the supermarket and they're like, yeah, I had an offer out for 2 days, I didn't get a response. The seller's gonna be like, what? You couldn't put yourself in a worse position. So like Francis said, very important there to make sure that the seller's in alignment with that and that decision, number 1. Number 2, she also said something that is invaluable, and it is that if you do not have, and I tell my sellers this all the time, would you take offer number 1 if it were the only one? Yes. Would you take offer number 2 if it were the only one? Yes. Okay, then we should consider highest and best. I don't care what else happens. I need at least a minimum of 2 acceptable offers before calling for highest and best. If you only have one good one and there's another one that stinks and it's like 20 grand behind it, I watch a lot of agents jump right into bed with highest and best. And that is a terrible, terrible, terrible approach, because if number 1 leaves or something happens, now you've called for highest and best. You've squeezed the sponge out and you don't have any offers that you're willing to accept or good enough ones. Always save your ability to call for highest and best, because you can really only do that once without looking foolish, right? And I'd rather do it in day 3 of attorney review when all of a sudden 2 more offers came in and we go, guys, I'm so sorry, but this is the position we're in, rather than doing it prematurely and ending up with an offer that's kind of like, And Francis, you're 100% right. Things have definitely cooled off a little, pulled back, might be the time of year. I think going into the next couple months till election is done, we're not really going to know what the market's going to look like on the other side. So be cautious with price. The reason we had a bunch of bidding wars in July, August, early part of September is because people priced it to get the bidding war. So now the sellers are jumping in after hearing the news for the last couple weeks, months, that pricing is through the roof. Now they all want to come in at the super high price, which is not a bidding war price. And like, how come I only have one offer? Well, you did list your house 75 grand more than the person down the street that was all excited because they got 75 grand over. So all important stuff. I have an OP mastermind that I need to jump on now at 4:00. So I'm going to let Matt close you guys out, but I want to thank everybody here today for contributing. This is really awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for being on.
Thanks, Bill.
Next week, Bill is actually not going to be here. However, I will be leading it with Ron. So it'll be a little bit different energy next week, potentially. So I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. Bye, guys.
Yeah, it's not good.